Kia ora, Mike Atkinson. This presentation is looking at transitions to abseil. Now, the context of this presentation is where a climber has led up a climb or they've top roped up a climb, and either way they want to abseil back down without leaving any gear behind at the anchor. There are many different ways or techniques to transition to abseil. The system that we've designed here has many built-in redundancies, and those redundancies are there to minimize any errors that may occur. You may see other people doing lots of other different systems. We think this system we've designed is good practice and would like to see everyone doing it this way. You may see other climbers, when they want to clear gear at an anchor setup, thread the rope through, tie back in and get lowered off by their belayer. Now this technique damages the anchor rings by wearing them down because a weighted rope is running through those rings. And those rings or the anchors are costly to replace, and question of who replaces them, who's responsible for that, and they're also quite expensive time as well. Nearly all of the anchor setups that we use in the Port Hills or Mount Somers are these Fixate rings, so the two rings side by side. You may come across other anchor setups that have chains that are linked by two bolts linked with a chain, maybe a shackle at the focal point. This slide setup is designed or showing the two Fixate rings, but just be aware that there may be some chain setups as well. The first step that you do is, when you get to the anchor station, is just to make a quick draw into one of the anchors, doesn't matter which one, and clip the rope in just like treating it like another bolt. Attach your cow's tail to the other anchor bolt, the one without the quick draw in it, and sit back on that so your weight is on that. Now you're still on belay, you haven't said anything to your belayer yet. Unclip the rope out of the quick draw and clip the bent gate of the quick draw into the loop of your cow's tail next to your locking beaner in your cow's tail. You are now safe off two different bolts off the anchor. Lean back on your cow's tail, turn around, make visual eye contact with your belayer, put both hands up in your ear and yell out in a clear, loud voice, "Safe, take me off belay," in the name of the belayer. The belayer will then, holding on to the rope, so still on belay, put both their hands up in the air and yell out in a clear voice, looking at the climber, "You're off belay," in the name of the climber. Once the belayer has taken their device off, you can now pull up a couple of 2 to 3 meters of rope, tie an overhand on a bight, clip that onto a beaner on your gear loop of your harness. On the photo here it's on a quick draw, but it can be any beaner, and that's not holding any weight because the gear loops aren't structurally sound, they aren't rated for strength. So just clip it there for now, because all we're going to do next is untie the figure 8 knot on your harness. You can see that that's here, and untie that. And so if you didn't have this knot here, you untied this and let go of that rope, you'd lose the whole rope down to the ground, and you look pretty silly sitting up there with no rope. Once you've untied the figure 8 knot from your harness, thread that rope, end of the rope, through both anchor rings, and then tie an overhand knot, this knot here, tie that knot in the end of the rope. That does two things. Once you untie the overhand on a bight knot off your harness, take that off, that's going to stop the rope from pulling through. It's going to get blocked up here. And also, if you thread the rope down to the ground and it doesn't quite reach the ground for whatever reason, and your belayer yourself haven't picked that up, then you won't abseil off the end of it. Once you've threaded the rope down to the ground and your belayer job is not done, once they have taken you off belay, they need to stay alert and let you know when that end of the rope is touching the ground, and you should be able to see it too. Sometimes it can get stuck on a ledge when you are feeding it down to the ground, so just give it a flick or throw it outwards a little bit. Wait for confirmation if you can't see it on the ground, that the belay can see it on the ground. Once that's on the ground, then you can start threading your abseil device onto your belay abseil loop, and then your French prusik onto your leg loop of your harness, both double checking that your locking pins are done up. The next step is to try and get the weight off your cow's tail and onto the rope. So do this by pulling up with this hand here, up and down. So you're using your legs to push up and taking it in at the same time, and then locking it off with this hand here, holding the rope down and sliding the prusik up. This can be a little awkward, and it takes a few goes to get it good at it, but what you try and do really is just get the weight off the cow's tail here and onto the rope. And you can see in this image here, the cow's tail is slack, all right, and the weight is now on the rope, and you're holding it with your hand on the French prusik. Once you've got your weight off the cow's tail, then onto the rope, keep one hand on this hand here on the French prusik. Use the other hand to take off your cow's tail and your quick draw and clip them to your harness, keeping one hand on the French prusik throughout. Once you've detached yourself from the anchor system, then you can abseil down to the ground. On the way down, collect the quick draws if you've lead climbed up. Once on the ground, remove your ATC or your abseil device and prusik, take them off the rope, undo the overhand knot that you put in earlier on, and pull the rope down to the ground. If you forget to undo the knot, there's a high likelihood it'll get stuck up in here, and you have to come and undo that somehow, which is a bit awkward, so make sure you undo that knot. Just a couple of final thoughts with transition to abseil or any transition. There may seem like a lot of steps here. The key thing is to practice those steps. Just keep practicing them. You can't get out to the crag and practice them, then keep watching these presentations, making notes, keep finding ways of just trying to remember in your mind's eye about each step. Make sure you try and visualize it. The other key thing to remember is any transition is a key point in climbing where things can go wrong. And it's mostly human error. Most accidents in climbing are human error, not gear failure. So just be aware of that and make sure you're very pedantic, and make sure you pull others up on being pedantic about following the correct systems and processes and communication steps. Look after each other. Be safe.